Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Alina Islam, and I'm a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. I'm very pleased to introduce Argentina Lithium and Energy to you today, a lithium company focused on advancing a portfolio of early-stage brine assets in Argentina. For the webinar today, we have with us Miles Rideout, VP Exploration. Miles will provide an introduction to the company, including an overview of activities currently underway at its Ringcon West and Antifa North projects. After the presentation, we'll take your questions live. Please send us your questions via the chat box and we'll get through as many as we can. Before we get started, I do need to mention the fine print. For Argentina Lithium, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this webinar. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Argentina Lithium corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Argentina Lithium specific disclosures. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Miles. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Alina. So Argentina Lithium and Energy is an exploration company focused in northwest Argentina. There's our forward-looking statements. In this image, you can see our projects shown as the yellow stars. This is a representation of the lithium triangle. The lithium triangle is of interest to investors because it's a highly prospective area for discovering and developing lithium brine deposits. So brine deposits would be subterranean solution deposits located in salt lakes. And so when you take a brine deposit through to production, instead of making a conventional mine, what you're doing is you're drilling out a well field, you're pumping the concentrated lithium brines to surface, you are extracting lithium from those brines. There's two main methods of that kind of processing, and then you're disposing of the brines afterwards. Usually, if you're using a direct lithium extraction technique, you would be pumping those brines back into the salt lake at a different location. In this image of the lithium triangle, you can see that there's the darker shaded area is Argentina. All of our projects are focused in Argentina. And then there's also Chile and Bolivia. Chile and Bolivia regulate their lithium assets differently than Argentina. They're considered strategic assets, and you would need to be involved with, for instance, in Chile, having a partnership of a kind with the Chilean state in order to be able to develop and produce from a lithium asset. In contrast, in Argentina, the lithium minerals are regulated the same way as any other mining commodity. And that means that we go through the same regulatory process as for copper, gold, silver, anything like that. And we go into production using the same regulatory framework for minerals. And typically what would be involved then? We'd be paying a 3% net smelter royalty to the applicable province. And the mining regulations are implemented by the provinces as well. So that is an important point to note. If an investor is looking at lithium brine assets, they're inexpensive to develop because they're well fields, basically. And then Argentina's a prominent investor destination because the investment regimen and the production regimen is highly favorable because it's regulated just the same way any other mining commodity is regulated. Recent news, which has transformed our company, is an investment by Stellantis Corporation. Stellantis is one of the major automotive producers. They are Chrysler, Peugeot, Fiat, Citroën, amongst other automotive manufacturers. They're one of the world's largest lithium automotive manufacturers. And we've been in discussions with Stellantis since about February of this year. They've visited and reviewed all of our projects and our business plan going forward, and they invested $90 million in the company. We made this news announcement in, I think, August of this year. And this news means that we're fully funded to take our two core projects through resource stage and to pre-feasibility stage, which we anticipate will require about 3 years. I'll be discussing those projects. In my estimation, this means that Argentina Lithium is highly prospective for investors today. We'll be taking our two core projects through key stages of exploration and into mine planning without having to go back to the money markets or dilute our stock. Our management group is the Grosso Group based in Vancouver. So Argentina Lithium Energy is one of 3 companies managed by the Grosso Group. The other companies are focused on Basin precious metals and on uranium. Over the last 30 years, the Grosso Group has made, through those other 2 companies, they've made 4 world-class discoveries in Argentina. Those discoveries are shown on the screen here. 2 of these are in production today, and the Amarillo Grande, which is a uranium discovery, is it's a massive new uranium district which the Grosso Group has found in Argentina. This demonstrates that the Grosso Group knows how to get business done in Argentina, from the stages of developing projects, exploring projects, and then taking those projects through to a favorable production scenario. The Grosso Group's been doing this, as I say, for 3 decades. We're hoping to do the same thing now in the lithium space with Argentina Lithium and Energy. This is the management group for the Grosso, for the Argentina Lithium and Energy. Joe Grosso is up on the top left side of this figure. My background, I'm an exploration geophysicist, and I've been with Argentina Lithium and Energy now for about just over 2 years. And prior to that, I've been working with the Grosso Group since the late 90s as an exploration geophysicist or a contract geophysicist. And I've been involved on several of their projects over that time. They invited me to join the company as the exploration manager 2.5 years ago. And I think it's worked out very well for me and for them. And I think what we're looking forward to doing over the next 3 years is going to be very exciting, and there's a good opportunity for investors. Just a quick word on the growth of the lithium industry. If we go back about 10 years in time, the world's lithium production was worth about the same as it would be for one world-class copper deposit. So that would be about 2013. Since that time, the amount of lithium carbonate produced worldwide has increased 4 times over, and the value of lithium carbonate has increased, depending on the period, between 5 times and 10 times in value. And that means that the actual value of the lithium industry over 10 years has increased between 20 and 40 times over. And that puts us up in this graphic to about 2023. With projected consumption largely driven by electric vehicle manufacturer, we expect that the growth curve will continue to accelerate, in fact. This is an important distinction if you're comparing lithium to other mine commodities. Many other mine commodities would be something like a steady state scenario, where you have an existing industry and you're counting on increases in the price of product to be able to bring new projects into production. In contrast, lithium business, was a fledgling industry 10 years ago, and it's growing into a massive energy adjacent commodity, energy being a very large monetary field, a very large business field. And so to have a commodity which is essential for energy utilization going forward, and you're building that industry from something close to zero, it's a tremendous growth opportunity for investors. And this industry still has a long way to go before we reach a steady state level. So let's take a look at our projects on a more detailed level. The map on the right-hand side shows our project areas in outlined in red. And what I'll do is I'll just grab a highlighter here and I'll be able to show them. So up in the north is our Ringcon West project on the Salar de Ringcon. Hang on, I need to, sorry. My cursor doesn't show exactly, sorry, I can't do that. When I was drawing on the screen, the lines were coming up somewhere else. So let's just forget that for now. So anyway, I'll just discuss it looking at this map. So the northern project area is Salar de Ringcon, and we have a project on the west side there, another on the north, and on the far east, we have Don Fermin. So those properties are adjacent to the central deposit on Ringcon Salar, which is owned by Rio Tinto Mining. Rio Tinto purchased that deposit about 18 months ago for $820 million US, and they have a large resource that they're taking into production using direct lithium extraction. Our initial property on Ringcon predates the acquisition of that central deposit by Rio Tinto, and since Rio Tinto came in, we've continued to add on to that position. We've been drilling on Ringcon now for about 18 months, and we'll be drilling on Ringcon all through 2024, and I'll be showing a little bit more about that in a more detailed map. If we move to the south, the first projects that we encounter moving southward are the Posis Project. So again, several blocks on that blue outline, which is the Posis Salar. And then if we keep going to the south and a little bit to the west, we have the Antifa North project. The Antifa North project is a similar scenario to what we have at Ringcon. Our neighbor to the south at Antifa is Albemarle Corporation, the world's second largest lithium producer. They have a very large resource in the central part of the Antifa Salar. You can see Antifa Salar is an extremely long, narrow basin shown in that shaded blue color. And our project there is about 27 kilometers north-south. The Albemarle project, which is indicated by those dashed lines, is about 60 kilometers in length. We haven't begun drilling yet on Antifa North, and I'll be showing a little bit more detail about that project in a subsequent map. And then down at the far end of this figure, we have our Inkawasi project. Again, it's a large property block on a salar, and in that case, we have the entire salar to ourselves. I'll be looking at these now in more detail. So starting with that northernmost project, this is Ringcon West. Our properties are the shaded areas in green, and that white central area is the Rio Tinto project where it says Ringcon Salar. All of our projects are actually adjacent to the Rio Tinto property. It's a very large property. We've been working over the last 2 years on the westernmost property there. The area, which is roughly triangular in shape, has 9 drill holes into it now, all of which have validated that we have similar lithium grades to what Rio Tinto has on their project. And over the last few months, we moved our drill out into that inverted L-shaped figure, which is a more recent property acquisition. We have 5 drill holes planned there. Early next year, when we complete those 5 drill holes, we'll be moving the diamond drill rig up to that northern property, and I expect that we'll have between 6 and 8 drill holes to drill on that area. That area is called Paso de Seco. It's labeled on this map. And then we will evaluate the property to the far east. It's called Don Furman. It was announced in a recent news release. And we don't currently have drilling planned there. We'll be conducting our geophysics in the next few months and then determining our drill targets there. What this means, though, is that we'll be drilling on Ringcon West through the coming year. And as we complete each one of these property blocks, we'll be producing a resource estimate and making that announcement. So we should have the first resource estimate for that westernmost block ready by the beginning of Q3 for next year. I'll show a bit more about what we're doing here. So if you recall in that figure, that western block is actually on the west side of the salt flat. What we have there is this sandy basin with its flat-lying gravel and sand cover on a basin which is about 300 meters depth. Our hypothesis was that the same brines which occur on the actual salt flat percolate through our sandy basin. So we conducted geophysics surveys here, which indicated that we have electrically conductive material starting at about 100 meters depth. And our drilling has shown that that material is in fact sandy sediment saturated with concentrated lithium brines. So let's take a look at that. So this is what some of our geophysics looks like. The transient electromagnetic traverses are the blue lines shown on this figure. They're presented as cross sections. I've blown up one of those cross sections on the left-hand side. So on the upper part of that cross section, you can see the trace of the ground. That section is about 6 kilometers in length, something like that, or 5 kilometers in length. And the upper white shaded area there is then either dry sediment or sediment which is saturated with relatively resistive fresh water. And then we get into the conductive brines, typically at about 100 meters depth. And those are those deep red and purple shaded colors. And where the brines are not too thick, we're able to see through them and into the underlying rock units, which would be the basement lithologies of our basin. On the right-hand side of this figure, where it goes white, what's actually happening there is the brines are so thick that we can't see through them, and the geophysical signal is stopping within the actual conductive aquifer. And so in that area, we don't know how deep the brines would be, not until we drill. What I've done is on the figure on the right-hand side, I've shaded the conductive aquifer zone in yellow. So that yellow shaded area is where we've mapped aquifer used in this kind of geophysics. And then the circles shown on this figure are our existing drilling. So we've been, let me show you that. That central sort of more triangular figure is the property where we've already drilled 9 exploration holes. And you can see our results on the left-hand side. And then in the inverted L figure, our 2 most recent holes. We haven't yet announced those results. And we have 3 more exploration holes going into the elbow part of that inverted L. So if you look at our results, what we typically see is we drill through about 50 meters of dry sediment, about 50 meters of freshwater saturated sediment, and then we get into the brines, typically at about 100 meters depth, and we'll still be in those concentrated brines at about 300 or a little bit more meters depth as we go into the basement units. And our attractive intervals then show lithium grades ranging from about 250 to as much as 402 milligram per liter lithium. And those values are comparable to what Rio Tinto has on their part of the basin. So we're actually working on a resource here now. We'd like to complete a number of rotary wells and pump tests in this area before we can complete that resource. So this is work that we'll be doing in the first half of next year. and then we'll be declaring our initial maiden resource for Ringcon, and the exploration diamond drill will be moving up to that far northern property, which is not shown in this figure. Our other core project is Antifa North. So this was in that original map that I showed. This is about 3/4 of the way down the map and slightly on the left-hand side. So Antifa North, our project is the green shaded area, and that thin black outline that you see to our south is the Albemarle property. And Albemarle actually extends off the bottom left side of my map. It extends for about 60 kilometers in length. Our green shaded properties are about 27 kilometers if measured north-south. And the width of that long, narrow salar is about 7 to 10 kilometers east-west. We don't have any drilling here yet. Our historic geophysics in this property demonstrate that the basin extends to 500 meters depth. What we typically see is an interbedding of conductive units. We think these would be porous units saturated with concentrated brines, and then interspersed with more resistive horizontal strata, which might be volcanics or something else. But that sequence continues to approximately 500 meters depth based on the drilling. Historic drilling to our south, where Albemarle acquired their ground, also demonstrates that the basin is in most places 500 meters depth, and there are areas on this basin which are 700 meters depth. We're in permitting now. We hope to have our exploration permits for this area secured in the first quarter of next year. We'll be doing 110 line kilometers of the same kinds of geophysics that I was showing previously. Then we'll be planning 6 broadly spaced drill holes going up our property, spaced roughly at 4-kilometer intervals. And the objective would be to find which are the most prospective areas of that basin. And once that initial drilling is completed, we'll be doing infill drilling to drill out our resource. And I would expect that we'll drill approximately 30 exploration holes in total to get this done. Initially, we'll be starting with a single rig running, but as soon as it's practical to do so, we'll mobilize a second diamond drill rig. And then when we bring a third rig in, it's likely to be a rotary rig so we can drill larger diameter wells and conduct pump tests. Those were the 2 core projects where we're focused at the current time. We have 2 lower priority projects in the pipeline. This is the Positos project, which is located between Ringcon and Antifa North. And we have about 25% of that salar. The Positos salar, as you can see in this figure, it's about 60 kilometers north-south and about 20 kilometers east-west. So we have a very large piece of it. There are many companies exploring the Positos salar right now. Typically, they're encountering lower grade values. So to put this in a frame of reference, if we look at Ringcon and also Antifa, these are both established mid-grade salars with frequently with lithium values in the 300 to 400 milligram per liter range. At Positos, historic drilling on Positos typically shows brines in the range of 100 to perhaps 150 milligram per liter lithium. We don't think it's convenient for us to drill on Positos at the current time. It's been very easy to pick up our property package here. We anticipate that once we have Ringcon and Antifa North on track towards production, we would mobilize our exploration assets onto Positos and explore Positos at that point. And we think that the developing lithium market would be receptive to a large tonnage, lower grade resource at that point. What's happening in the lithium business is that there's a revolutionary new extraction technologies which will make these lower grade resources commercially viable. So this is going to be an exciting field of development over the next 5 to 10 years. So I think that once we are ready to start exploring on Positos, the market will have changed and available technologies will have changed, and a large tonnage, lower grade resource would be commercially viable. We have a similar story then on Inkawasi. This is our southernmost project. Again, this is a very large property block we have. Both Positos and Inkawasi have property size about 25,000 hectares. At Inkawasi, we have the entire salt basin to ourselves. We have 4 historic wells here. They averaged 109 milligram per liter lithium, so lower grade lithium. Once we have our 2 primary projects on track towards production, we would be looking at moving our exploration assets onto Inkawasi, and again, looking for a large tonnage, lower grade resource. I don't think that either Positos or Inkawasi are the main focus for investors today, though, but they illustrate where we'll be exploring after we have our 2 primary projects on track to production. So this is our work program over the next approximately 2 months. So we're drilling on Ringcon. Our first 9 drill holes are complete. We're on the second batch of 5 holes, and then we'll be moving up to the north with 6 further exploration holes up there. And we're in the process of getting our permits so we can do rotary drilling and pump tests on Ringcon West. Antifa North, we're in permitting right now. We'll be starting the exploration geophysics there early next year, and then we'll be doing 6 broadly spaced exploration holes along the length of that project. And then for Positos and Inkawasi, our activity is just focused on geophysical exploration. So this is what our publicly listed stock situation looks like. So we have 131 million shares outstanding, fully diluted, that's 213 million. A recent market capitalization is about 50 million Canadian dollars. I'll just make the point that when Stellantis invested $90 million in our company, they were investing through one of their Argentine subsidiaries, and they invested into our Argentine subsidiary. It was the expedient way for them to provide that investment. And they currently own 19.9% of our Argentine subsidiary. When they convert to public stock, they would have right to a board seat and a voting board member. And at that point, we'd be issuing stock to them, which would represent a dilution to the stock of approximately 27 million shares, which is not reflected in this diagram. So just keep that in mind. But aside from that activity, if and when Stellantis exercises their right to convert to publicly listed stock, aside from that, we don't anticipate other financing activities over the next 3 years. We're fully funded to take our 2 core projects through to pre-feasibility. And then here is our investor contact. He's located in Vancouver. We're happy to take questions from investors or other interested parties. And that is my presentation. Thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot, Miles. So we can get started on the Q&A now. Just as a reminder to our participants, you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. So we have a couple of questions here, Miles. Maybe let's just start off by talking about the recent presidential election and what your thoughts are on how this is going to affect mining companies in Argentina.
I'd love to. So we were pleased with the election result, but the situation is as follows. The actual mining regulation is executed by the individual provinces. So all of our projects are located in 2 pro-mining provinces. That's in Salta, which is the more northern province, and Catamarca, which is our southern 2 projects. Both those provinces view development in lithium as being very favorable for the provinces. There's several reasons for this. One is where we're operating, which is in the western high plain of Argentina. It's an economically depressed area. There's small communities there which don't really have viable economic means of subsistence. And the provinces are looking at lithium investment and mining investment to develop these areas and provide good paying jobs for those communities. We're happy to oblige. We're hiring, honestly, as many locals as we can get our hands on. We have local residents working with our drilling program, working with our geophysics. We train them to be competent with supervising drilling operations. And we're hiring, honestly, as many drilling technicians from the local communities as we can locate. It's a good long-term opportunity for them. I think the communities are responding well, and the provinces see this very favorably. So the political situation, regardless of the recent election results, has been favorable for lithium development in the Northwest. With the election of Javier Milei, and he's a sort of a central right candidate, he's an economist and he's pro-business, we're looking for this to produce a very favorable business environment. So aside from permits for mining and development of that kind, businesses in Argentina require imported goods and free monetary transactions. So his election and the changes that he's planning to implement will favor this kind of very pro business environment, and an environment which is amenable to foreign investment as we get our projects into production.
Okay, all right. So another question here on drilling. How easy is it to obtain rigs? Are the rigs specialized for lithium exploration, or can any drilling rig be used?
The diamond drilling that we're doing initially, and we're using diamond drilling because that way we're able to extract core and do porosity measurements on the core and determine how much brine we can recover from the host formations. So the diamond drilling rigs are standard rigs. What would be important would be that the operators of those rigs have experience in salars. If you're drilling in a salt lake, the conditions that you're drilling in are somewhat different. How you're sampling is different from what you would be doing on a copper or a gold project. So the experience of the drill crews is important, but the actual hardware is pretty standard. And then for the rotary rigs, these would be large rigs for drilling production wells. And you would use the same kinds of rigs if you were doing industrial water development for, say, for a city or a municipality. Those rigs are a bit harder to find, but there are plenty of that kind of rig in the country as well. Typically, in order to secure a drill rig of either kind, you require maybe 60 to 90-day lead time working with your drill contractor for them to free up a rig and get it onto your project.
Okay, all right. Next question. What is the origin of halite in the brines?
Well, that's a good question. So the halite is NaCl salt. And so halite is the name of, the geological name of common table salt. And you might imagine that the brines occur from the uplift of the continent and they're related to oceans, but they're not, or at least not in large part. Most of the brines are produced through volcanic activity. So we have hydrothermal vents in this area where we're working. It's an extremely volcanic area. There's volcanoes everywhere you go. And these hydrothermal vents have been ejecting salty and mineralized solutions into these basins over millions of years. And these are closed basins. Typically, we don't have a flow out of our basins. And so to eliminate the accumulating water in solution, it's evaporated. And so you've got an ideal process to concentrate these mineral solutions into these closed basins. And as a result, we end up with some highly concentrated brines. The brines frequently are saturated. Once we have a brine on Ringcon, which is say about 400 milligram per liter lithium, that's a saturated brine, and it's also about 20% denser than water. So when we're talking about brines, brine is not the same as water. Typically, they're found at lower levels than fresh water. Those brines would be toxic to plant life, and almost all the basins have lithium in some quantity, but the actual lithium grades vary from basin to basin. There's certain kinds of mineral occurrences which would favor leaching of lithium into those brines. It gets to be a sort of a technical point, but if you're looking at most of the volcanic minerals that we see in our environment, in that crystal lattice of the mineral, there's no place for a lithium ion. So the lithium leaches from those volcanic rocks very readily and ends up in solution in a salt lake somewhere.
Okay, all right. So next question here, Miles. I don't know if you saw this, but Power Minerals put out a PEA for their Ringcon project yesterday. Do you know where their project is located in relation to yours?
Sorry, which company?
Power Minerals?
Oh, yes. They're immediately, I'm assuming that's from their Ringcon project.
Yes.
So that is a project that's immediately south of our area where we're drilling ourselves. So if you recall what our map looked like, and there was that inverted L over on one side of the block where we're drilling currently, you take one step to the south of that inverted L, that's the Power Minerals property right there.
Okay, all right. So recently you announced that you're increasing your exploration plans at Ringcon West and Antifa North. So with these upgraded plans, is your budget for next year higher than the 15 million you'd indicated previously?
No, that's the budget. So with our accelerated plans, we're committing to mobilizing multiple drills onto Antifa North. In the case of Ringcon, we'll probably continue with one single diamond rig, but we'll be doing, I anticipate, more rotary wells as we go forward, and we don't need to stop work for anything. So we have the green light to, as soon as we have our permits in place, move our exploration as quickly as is expeditious to do so, mobilizing multiple rigs, hiring the geological crews that will need to manage multiple rigs, and try and move our resource estimates forward as quickly as possible.
Okay. Another question on Stellantis. I know you mentioned, down the line they're going to get a board seat, but are you getting any sort of other guidance or advice from them?
Not currently. As we were going through the negotiating process, they were quite forthcoming in what they were seeking with our company. And in a nutshell, they want us to take our two core projects through to production as quickly as possible. And so we present them our 3-year exploration plan, and their reply to us would be, can you do it more quickly? And so over a period of months, we were examining ways that we can move forward implementation of a plant in the area. And we came up with a plan which the Stellantis guys thought was good. We think it's good. I don't see any downside to the plan. And that's what we're implementing now, just as quickly as you can. But that still means that we're basically on resource to pre-feasibility work over the next 2.5 to 3 years. And at that point, once we have a pre-feasibility study for each of these projects, we'll be submitting that to the provincial authorities. Those guys will take about 12 months to approve the production plan. And we'll be looking at, during that 12-month pause, we'll be looking at ways in which we can develop our resource, conduct more well drilling and pump tests, and try and accelerate everything we need to get a well field into production as quickly as possible.
Okay, all right. Well, I think that's it for questions, Miles. So we're done with the Q&A portion of the webinar. Just as a reminder for our participants, our next webinar will feature New Pacific Metals, and that's tomorrow, December 1st at 11 a.m. Eastern. Miles, thank you for joining us today, and thank you to the rest of our participants. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Alina.